welcome back to another Snowfall Season 6, the final season review. If you are new to my channel, welcome. This is AABTV, better known as Authentically RGBTV, where we live life authentically the way we are supposed to be living it. So let's get into this episode, y'all, because it was a good one. So this episode is episode 8, and it is entitled The Ballad of the Bird. And before we even get into it, y'all, let's give it up to Amin Joseph, better known as Uncle Jerome, who I found out, as I was on Twitter while the show aired on Wednesday night, that he directed this entire episode. So he did his thing. He really did. He did his thing. And very pleased with how he directed it, y'all. So we get to the episode, and the repast is going on. We saw the funeral last episode, and Oso, or Gustavo, whatever you want to call him, he is sitting in the hood at the house, just about to go into the repast. And as he's walking through the repast, we hear everybody having like little conversations about Jerome, how dope of a person he was, how gangster he was. We even see a conversation going on between Sully and Leon, where Leon is just boohoo crying, talking to Sully at the table, and Sully's telling him that he forgives him for killing his daughter, and for Leon to let it go. Now, first glance, I did not even notice that, but when I rewatched it, I was like, oh my gosh. And so there was a couple of onlookers to that conversation, and we then see Louie. She just gets up, storms off, and eventually Oso, or Gustavo, meets up with Franklin. Franklin lets him know that he's got the collateral. He's got the things that he wants, the money, the passport, and he'll give it to him. And they discuss briefly about this plan that they have in order for them to get Teddy, and how they have incorporated Louie into it. And now we go back to Louie after she stormed off. She's in the bathroom. She's overwhelmed. She's breathing heavy. Then she's just like has this game face on. Why she got the game face on? Because she wants to go and sit down and talk to Franklin, which it was a super quick conversation anyway, but she was just like, I'll do what basically like, I agreed to helping you get Teddy, because we all know she agreed with Teddy to help him get Franklin. So it was just that quick of a conversation. And this entire episode, it just seemed like Oso has been having the biggest target on his back, because again, he's been split in between who he gonna help: the KGB, the DEA, Louie, Teddy, Franklin. Homeboy had a lot going on. So speaking of the DEA, they are now meeting with Oso, and they are letting him know that they'll be conducting this drop. And because he's been acting weird, because he's been acting shady, they don't know who he's talking to, what he got going on. It's just something about him that just don't seem right. They gonna send him to this quote unquote pickup or whatever with one of the females with the DEA or whatever. And so they grill him on that situation. Meanwhile, he has to go and meet with Franklin and Louie to get this whole situation with Teddy set up. So, Louie calls Teddy, and she's like, I'm gonna work with you. I got him. I know what's gonna happen. She gives him the details. Whole time Franklin and Oso are sitting there, and they are basically just ready to go. And Oso also has to go and have this like last moment, special moment with Xiomara and the kids. And so they're playing, and he gives them these like sentimental like wrestling masks to help them remember him. And he gives them this, they have this whole conversation. He gives them this little sweet little speech about always remember him. Xiomara's looking on. The kids really don't understand what's going on, but of course the adults do. And so after he sends the kids off, Xiomara has this conversation with him, and she's like, if you feel anything is going on, like you need to leave. And he lets her know, I love you, Nikki, you're a great mother to these boys, and gives her a contact information to let him know if they need anything. And they have this entire plan set up. Remember, I told you Franklin gave him the money with the passports and the the bag with the money and the passports. And so she was ready to go, and that's exactly what happened. Now, while all of this is going on, like I said, everybody seems to think that Oso is for them. The KGB does, the DEA does, Teddy does. And Teddy's up there talking with Nurse Girl about his conversation he had with people from the CIA. No longer will the CIA be his future. What should we do to make sure that we gain power, and can't give Franklin the money now and all this other stuff. Homegirl done went and got his somebody's grandmother's mama's engagement ring, and just like, well, together we're gonna do this. And he sat there and he proposed to her, y'all, and I was just like, my goodness, my goodness. I don't know. I don't really trust that girl, but I don't trust Teddy either, because Teddy's going crazy too, just like everybody else. But anyway, after Oso left from Ziamara house, we see that somebody's like staking out the house, and it ends up being the KGB dude, better known as a murder for hire dude. And he's again suspicious of the things that Oso has got going on. So he's like following him around, making sure that he's basically gonna do what he said he's gonna do to help him catch, the CIA and all this other stuff. And then Franklin and V, they're together at their hideout spot having a conversation about, the if I don't make it home stuff. And she don't want to hear it. She's not happy about the things that's going on. But she also knows that this is the life that she chose to stay in, and she's pregnant, of course, still. And Franklin is like, if anything happens to me, I want you and mama to get out of the country, take the money, and I want y'all to raise my son together and give him the best life possible. Of course, who wants to hear that? But she knows that everything, or she hopes that everything is going to go out, the way that everybody's planning it to. And he's got like basically, all his chips in on Oso, because he keeps saying if Oso doesn't come through, I don't know what's gonna happen. But he has a feeling deep down that his buddy Oso is gonna come through for him, because they've been through a lot together, and he seems to be very much for Oso, and Oso seems to be very much for Franklin. So everybody seems to be ready to get this whole meetup going. Oso is at the pickup with the lady from the DEA. And the people that they meeting on, they running late, they getting on his nerves. He got stuff that he's supposed to be doing for Teddy and for Franklin and for everybody else. Like I said, everybody is gunning for Oso. So he's like upset. He's cussing and doing all that other stuff. And so finally the people, they show up, they get the dope, they give them the money. They're upset that the lady from the DA has somebody new with them, which of course is Oso. And so she's like saying like who he is or whatever. And then Oso decides to just kind of blow it by being sarcastic and telling them that she was the DEA and all this other stuff. And she's like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe he's doing this. But they took it as a joke. They thought he was being like basically like a smartass. And that's exactly what he was being. But unbeknownst to them, he was really telling them the truth. And so after they have their exchange, they leave. The lady from the DA goes back to her boss and lets him know, like, hey, he basically ratted me out. And I thought that, he, was being honest, because maybe he was trying to like blow up the spot. But they took it as a joke, and this is not his normal behavior. Like, this is not what he normally does. Like, something is really going on with him. And so they end up coming up with this idea to basically follow him around, listen to his conversations, and because they are suspicious of what he's going to do. And we all know that if he doesn't do what they want him to do, they are going to lock him up. Whole time he's like, he got other plans. He's got to meet up with Teddy. He's got to meet up with Franklin. He's got to catch Teddy for Franklin. Like, it's so much stuff that is on this man's back. And I was just like, my goodness, it couldn't have been me. It most definitely could have been me. So they're worried about, like I said, they're worried about Oso's dealings, and they feel like he's up to something. So while he's doing that, and Franklin and Louie, they meet up in this warehouse. They have agreed to help one another. She's agreed to help him get Teddy, right? So before all of this, she must have said that she got to whoop his ass. And that's exactly what she did. They pull up, V's there, Sully's there, And he just gets down on his knees and she just goes off on him. She punches him in his face. She just wows out on him. And B's just looking in the car like, this is too much for me. But he knows that she has so much resentment and so much anger built up to him that I'm guessing the only way that she would be able to help is if she was able to just whoop him. And sometimes it's what you got to do. You just got to let your anger out. And she let it out on her nephew for sure. So then they finally are waiting for the page from Oso. So after he's dealing with the DEA, he goes to the payphone and he's letting them know it's time. Franklin gets the page. Then Louis calls Teddy, says we on our way. She's gonna drop him off. He don't want her to stay, and so he's switching up the plan because he's nervous too. So she lets Franklin him know, like, he switched up the plan. This is what we're gonna do. So that's what they did. They dropped him off. They duct taped him up and just left him. And for a split second, when she was like, "Bye, Franklin," I was like, did she turn on him in this moment? Is she not gonna help him no more? It's just so much like dishonesty and trust issues within this entire group, and it was just like, okay, what's gonna happen now? So while Oso is with the DEA people, and before they go, headed back to where they're gonna go, like I said, he was on the phone. He was paging Franklin. He was trying to get in contact with Teddy. Teddy's wondering where he's at because he's like, look, like, we got stuff to do. Where you at? And so he's got all of these plans going on. And so the DEA, again, being very suspicious about his whereabouts, they the guy who's over it is just like hems him up. It's like, who you talking to? Who you talking to? He tells him who he's talking to, but he don't believe him. And so now he's like, I'll put you in jail so quick if you don't do what you need to do for me. Da 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 da. So now he done put him in the handcuffs, put him in the back of the seat, put him in the back of the car, and he's like, dang it. So now he's going to be late to do what it is he's supposed to do. Mind you, KGB is still following them. Why do I say KGB is still following them? Because as they're driving along, he's in the car. The girl's driving the truck with the dope in it or whatever. He decides to cause a scene. He has an accident that occurs. The girl gets out the truck. Everybody's knocked out because of the impact. And she goes to get on the walkie-talkie to let him know something happens. Who comes and kills her? KGB does. And takes freaking Oso. Because he's like, you got a mission to complete. And so he's like, oh my gosh. He knows that Teddy and them is headed to the warehouse. And when they get to the warehouse, oh, how the tables turn. But before we get to the warehouse, y'all, V is in the hideout spot. And I don't really know how far along she is. She's been pregnant, it seems like forever, and her stomach still hadn't gotten any bigger to me. But she's sitting there and she's having these pains, and I'm like, she's by herself. What's going on? They never went back to, what was going on with her. I don't know if it's like contractions or if it's gonna be some type of dire, dangerous thing for the baby that's going on. But she was on the floor crying in pain, and the whole time she's going through that, Teddy done came. He done saw Franklin. He done talked his shit to Franklin, and ends up hanging this man in the warehouse. And he's dangling, standing on top of a wheelbarrow. He's barely can breathe. He's trying to reason with Teddy. Then Teddy is just like, he's not hearing it. Teddy's over there preparing some stuff to inject into Franklin so that he can kill him, like he did the reporter girl. And as soon as he's about to do it, boom, in comes Oso. They both like, finally, like, you're here. Thank God you're here. In comes KGB. He's got Oso at gunpoint, tells him to handcuff Teddy so that he won't move. And then once he does that, Teddy's looking at him like, what are you doing? Help me. He ends up trying to like hide a gun of some sort. KGB notices it. He's like, hand it over to me. Then all of a sudden, Oso attacks KGB. They're wrestling. They fighting. They end up fighting like crazy to where they knock the little barrel from under Franklin, and then it makes him choke even more. And I was like, oh my gosh, his baby mama is in labor or something's wrong with her. And here he is dying, choking, suffocating. What is going on? So then finally he's like, help me, help me. You know, and the whole time Teddy's like, yes, yes, yes. Like he's on my side. You know what I'm saying? Like he's on my side. So then finally knocks out the KGB dude. Taking his precious time to save Franklin, but he ends up saving Franklin. And again, like I said, the tables turned because though Teddy thought that Oso had his back, he ended up having the back of Franklin. And I was very, 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 very happy. So next episode, no telling what's going to go on. And what's even crazier, and I didn't even think about this until I was watching it and following along with Twitter. This one girl on Twitter was like, nobody gave Oso collateral up front except for Franklin. Everybody else, Teddy, the KGB, DEA, they just promised himself, we'll get you this for that. We'll get you that for this. Nobody really came through for him like he expected them to, because he was really, really, really ready and willing to protect his family, which was in the flashback, if you all paid attention, when Franklin was at the repast and he said, do anything to protect your family. And that's exactly what Oso is all about. And that's exactly what Franklin was able to offer him. He gave him the passports, he gave them a duffel bag full of money, and he was able to get his family out. Everybody else was just promising him stuff, and they never really fully came through for it. And he could tell that at the end of the day, they probably wasn't going to do it. And I was like, big ups to her, because I didn't even think about it like that, because everybody was like, why would he choose Franklin? Why would he choose Franklin? Plus, on top of that, him and Franklin had to get away from them guys last season, the tiger, all of that stuff. And he really came through for him. So I was like, big ups to Oso, because he had so much weight on his shoulders, but he ended up saving the day as usual. And I feel like he made the right choice by having Franklin's back. And now Teddy is shookity, shook. And I cannot wait. We only got 2 more episodes left, y'all. And then Snowfall is over. And I don't know how I feel about it. But again, as I say all the time, I am curious to see how it's all going to come to a close. So I hope you guys enjoyed this recap. And I'll see y'all next week. Peace.